Blessed Advent to all of you and to your families. As we enter into this Advent season and we go to Mass or read the readings, we hear many of the Messianic prophecies, the prophecies from the prophets, which point to the Messiah. The people of Israel would take comfort in these prophecies. They actually gave them hope and directed their life in the way of faith. And so we too should listen to these prophecies and listen, what is it that the Lord wants to teach me through these prophecies? And so I was going to share with you probably actually one of the shortest prophecies called the Prophecy of Light, and reflect on it a little bit and see how can it help us during this Advent season. And so it comes from the prophet Isaiah, chapter 9, verse 2, and it reads, "The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. On those who live in the shadow of death, a light has shone." We may ask ourselves, who are these people that walked in darkness? Why are they in the darkness? How do they feel when they're in the darkness? Are they even aware that they're in the darkness? And then we can even look at ourselves. What parts of my life are in the darkness? Through bitterness, resentment, even the little selfishnesses and the lack of generosity in my life. Those areas that maybe no one knows about, where we pull back a little. So we want to look at those times of darkness and see how we can bring it to Christ, the great light. You know, as we think about darkness, it's easy to think about during this Advent season as our days become shorter and our nights elongate. And this will continue to happen throughout Advent until December 22nd, when then we will start to then increase the daylight as we actually approach Christmas. And then it'll continue actually beyond Christmas into the new year. But it's good for us to allow this darkness to weigh on us, to help us to enter into ourselves and to evaluate, where is the darkness in my life? When we look at the birth of Christ, you know, the great light, for we know that he is the great light that came to the people in darkness, came to us. Even his birth is surrounded by light. You know, when we read from Luke's gospel, the visitation of the shepherds, when the angels came to the shepherds and announced that Christ had come, it says that the glory of the Lord surrounded them. That must have been beautiful. It must have been stunning to those shepherds. But then we also read, you know, with the kings and their travel, that they were led by the great light of the star. It's almost like creation wanted us to know that the great light had come. And so, later even in Christ's life, he would proclaim, "I am the light of the world." When Christ came into the world, he didn't just bring the light. He came to give it the light. He gave it to us. We may not recall in our own baptism, but the baptism of others, that each of us at baptism received the light. Our godparents took our baptismal candle and they lit it to the Easter candle, the Paschal candle, which represents Christ. And that sacramentally, the visible sign of the invisible reality showed that within the soul of that person being baptized, Christ had entered in, and the great light had come and dispersed all the darkness. The darkness of original sin and any other sin which had invaded that soul was gone. And so it's good for us to reflect on that we are bearers of this great light. And so we need to make sure we utilize it to bring the light, not just even keep it for ourselves, but to bring it to others. That's what Christ wanted. He wanted us to share the light and bring it to the rest of the world. So as we reflect again on those dark places in our soul, the selfishness, the resentment, the anger, the lack of generosity, as we reflect on those, it's good for us to actually bring them out, to expose them to the light. Whether we do that through confession or sharing it with a friend or a spouse, or even writing it out, but to bear it out, bring it to the light, so then that Christ can expel it and fill it with his light. So I invite you and myself to do that during this rest of this Advent season as we continue to move into even a deeper darkness with our days shortening. But I'd like to leave with you an exhortation from St. Paul in his letter to the Ephesians, where he says to them, chapter 5, verse 8, "For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk then as children of light. For the fruit of light is in all goodness and justice and truth." And he goes on to quote from the prophet Isaiah. He says, "Awake, sleeper, and arise from among the dead, and Christ will be your light." So with Paul, I just encourage you to wake up, to rise up from the slumber, usually just like this, not so much doing evil, but it's just a laziness, a slumber of darkness. Arouse yourself, wake up, and let the light of Christ fill you, but not just you, that through that transformation of you expelling the darkness from yourself, others will see it, and then they too will receive the light of Christ. May he be praised.